Heyo, it's OmniDog from OmniDog's Vault. Thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to put the spotlight on AfterShock comics. I realized last week that I had a lot of AfterShock comics and I hadn't really seen any videos about AfterShock just in general, so I thought I'd make one. And I have a wide variety of different books for them. And I will say they put out a quality product. Everything that I'm going to talk about today, I either really liked or loved. So if you don't have the time to watch the video, know that I loved all these or liked them greatly, and look in the description box for what the books are, and then you can go have your piece of cheesecake and just relax. But for those of you who want to stay and see the art, because the art in all these books is really something. And I have hardcovers and trade paperbacks, and I will tell you what trades are getting released into hardcover. The very first AfterShock book I read is a book that made me really start to like Marguerite Bennett. I liked her work on Bombshells. She did another book that I'm going to talk about. And this book is called Insexts, Year One, and it's a very nice oversized hardcover. Now this premise, you're going to have to follow it with me. It deals with two Victorian women, whoops, I can't show you that, who are in love with each other. I can show you this. Who are in love with each other, and they gain the power to turn into these giant, vengeful insects, like giant, and then change back to themselves. And they have no tolerance for any men that want to put their foot on the throat of these women. They are very strong, powerful women, and they take no shit from any man. But that doesn't mean it's a man-hating book. It just means they're strong, powerful women who are asserting themselves back in Victorian England. And then at a certain point in the book, they travel to France. And this book, okay, I can show you this. This book deals with a lot of the supernatural and occult, which is a big pleasure of mine. I love anything like that. And these women are drawn, well, first of all, the art is great. It's by Ariella Cristantina. And I found the art to be very enjoyable. I love the supernatural, and I love the occult, and I love powerful women. So this book is right up my alley, and this art is right up my alley. And they have various adventures of intrigue and conspiracy and backstabbing, and not amongst themselves, but they meet other powerful women who have, here you can see one of the women turned into her insect form, defending herself. Even though it's the back of the guy, she is defending herself. And I highly recommend this book for people that like powerful women and the occult and the supernatural, that like a really well-written, smart comic. I think the world of Marguerite Bennett. As a matter of fact, she signed my book. I think it was like at Baltimore maybe a couple of years ago. She was very nice. And there's all manner of wacky, weird, occult creatures in this book. They have a son together, and they work, of course, to tirelessly protect him from all the things that are going on in the world. And I highly recommend this book from AfterShock. It is Insects. Now, the next book is a take on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen concept. It's called Rough Riders. Now, this is in the bigger format. You can see that AfterShock has gone bigger. This was big, but their new hardcovers are really nicely constructed, very big and beautiful. And in this book, with great art, Teddy Roosevelt has gotten together a team of let's see, Thomas Edison, Annie Oakley, Harry Houdini, and Jack Johnson, the famous fighter boxer from early 1900s. And there's another guy named Eastman, but I haven't figured out a historical reference point for him. He's like the muscle in it, but I haven't figured out what historical part he is in this. And they have 3 story arcs in this book. They go from conspiracy to kill the president and what's behind that, and how Teddy Roosevelt becomes president, alien invasion, and invasion from a foreign power from a queen that was long thought to be dead. There's a fair amount of supernatural in this book, although Houdini doesn't believe it for a second. He said everything has a explanation. The true star of this book is Annie Oakley, who totally kicks ass, and Houdini. I love them both. I love Annie Oakley's strong woman portrayal, especially for that time back in the United States. And Jack Johnson is of course black, and yet he gets treated as an equal in this team, but not necessarily in the world. And they show a lot of Houdini in this book, and I'm a big Houdini fan, so I really enjoyed it. So the team of Rough Riders goes on 3 different adventures. It's really well written by Adam Glass with art by Patrick Olife. I'm terrible at names. I'm so sorry. Whatever your last name is, Patrick, you did great art because I really like it. And I love this book. I thought it was just a blast and a barrel of fun, and it deals with some historic Teddy Roosevelt stuff. Big Teddy Roosevelt fan, and it deals with a lot of his stuff, including his troubled relationship with his daughter. And I thought this book was a blast. I highly recommend this to those of you out there. Rough Riders from AfterShock is great. You're going to hear me say great a lot because I liked all these books. Now, this next book I really, really liked. It's called Shock. This is volume 2, and it's a big book. And it's an anthology of horror stories. And they've got a lot of famous writers in it. R.L. Stine, Marguerite Bennett, Frank Thierry, Jill Thompson, Cullen Bunn, Francesco Francavilla, just Ray Fox, just Ron Mars, just to name a few. So it's an anthology of horror and supernatural or scary stories. And I think for an anthology, this did it well. It's hard to tell a story in just a few pages, but generally the majority of these stories really hit the mark, and they are at least interesting, sometimes disturbing, but very entertaining. I haven't got the book Shock number 1 yet. That's on order. But I can highly recommend the horror anthology Shock 2. It's just a bunch of short stories that are, whoops, I don't want to show that because that'll give away the ending of something. It's short stories, and I would say the majority of them really hit their mark. So I can recommend Shock from AfterShock. This next book I think was the most interesting, not the best. The best, I'll spoil it for you. The best is A Walk Through Hell. But this next book I found really interesting and really well told because it could have been stupid. I mean, it comes up with the idea. It's Animosity by Marguerite Bennett, who I love. It comes up with the premise that all of a sudden, one day, animals can talk and think for themselves. And you might think that, how far can she take that? What do polar bears start tearing apart humans? How interesting is that? Trust me, she makes it really interesting. It is a really neat concept. Some animals are out for revenge. You know, lab animals are out for revenge. But some pets, you know, like the main protagonist is a young girl who loses her parents, and her dog is very loyal and very faithful. And the art is really cool in this book too. And there's the main protagonist right here with her dog who starts talking and thinking, and he is very loyal and he stands by her side, as of course it's almost a post-apocalyptic scenario, because all of a sudden animals can speak for themselves. They want a slice of the action. They want to be treated better. And humans, of course, don't necessarily want to give up their world. So when all of a sudden the cows in a slaughterhouse turn against the people trying to kill them, and animals are not a ready source of meat anymore, you've got to improvise and figure it out. And this is across the whole world. This deals with the United States, and this little girl's trying to get from, I think, Manhattan to San Francisco, where her half brother is. And it's a long journey that takes them through several states, and every state in the United States. Marguerite Bennett does something really cool. She has in the back of the book what every state is like during this time and what every country is like during this time. Little blurbs about what it's like in North America, Australia, Europe, and because every situation's different. Maybe in Utah, where Mormons have said that since the animals have thoughts, they have souls, the humans get treated better and form an alliance with the animals. And we're talking all animals. It's amazing. And you might say, well, wait, animals don't have vocal cords. Well, that gets addressed, and they're trying to figure it out. There's a crew of scientists who are roaming around trying to figure out how exactly these animals can talk. Some people say it's magic, some people say it's aliens, but it happens all at once, and of course that leads to unrest amongst everybody. And the United States splits up into different states that have no traditional sense of government. It's a lot of times it's the U.S. military. The animals have learned to use weapons, especially with those with opposable thumbs, and they can, the animals, as I said, range from vengeful to kind and warm and loving. So you get a wide variety, and this book isn't just about animals talking. It's about man's relationship with animals of all kinds, from the dog to the cow in the slaughterhouse. It's a relationship. It's a kind of a not a treatise, but it's a study of what would happen if our fellow animals all of a sudden were sentient. And it addresses the inequities between humans and animals. And some of those traits show up in animals. Not all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. If you remember that story, Animal Farm. There are some animals that take on human characteristics of power and cruelty and rule through that. There are some farms set up where animals and humans cooperate and are able to have food and water and oil storage for their cars, because planes all of a sudden started coming down. That's one of the things you see as birds throw themselves into the engines of birds. Let me see if I can get that picture. Birds throw themselves into the engines of planes and make them all crash as an opening statement, which is pretty scary when you think about groups of animals that all of a sudden can think. So this is 2 books, and it's about the young woman's journey. Sandor is the dog's name, and Jessie is the girl's name. It's 2 books so far, and this is where you might have an issue. Year 1 is smaller than Animosity Year 2. So on your shelf, they're going to look like this. Those of you who have an issue with this, you're going to have to learn to deal with it. There's also a third book that I have on order. I think it's called Animosity, The Rising or The Rise. I can't remember, but I have it on order, and I expect it to be just as good as these two books. Fantastic concept, really well done, and I just think the world of Marguerite Bennett. I think she is a really sharp writer and has a lot of great ideas. So that's a highly recommended book, Animosity. Then we come to my paperbacks. All of these paperbacks, not all of them. Yeah, all of them have, I kept the paperbacks, but they've been turned into oversized hardcovers. First one, A Walk Through Hell. This is February of 2020. In late spring or summer, this is coming out in oversized hardcover, and I urge you to get it. It's by Garth Ennis, and I'm going to try and explain this book. It's got 4 or 5 different things going on in it. The art is spectacular. It deals with 2 FBI agents who at first are trying, in flashbacks, it shows how they are trying to capture a pedophile killer. He's a famous, he's a famous pedophile, and he's going to city and recruiting other pedophiles to do, in the community, to do his bidding for him, and then they kill themselves, the other pedophiles. And so so they're researching, the FBI is trying to track down this main pedophile, and at one point they come across a scene at a warehouse. There's something going on in this warehouse, and I'm not going to spoil too much of it for you, but whoever goes into the warehouse is either lost or comes out stark raving mad. This SWAT team you see with the guns there, they were sent into the warehouse, and they came out so disturbed they all decided to kill each other in their van. So these 2 FBI agents go into this warehouse, and it's like a huge labyrinth. It's just a warehouse, but it's got more twists and turns. It's clearly possessed by something, and they see remarkably disturbing and interesting sights in this book. They find their old comrades in there. 2 other FBI agents went in before them. This game plays with your mind a lot because there's lots of things that are unexplained, that can't be explained. Garth Ennis does a great job in this book at creating tension and excitement. And I'm not going to talk too much about the ending, other than it has 2 books, and it has to deal. The second book has to deal with what they kind of find on the other side of that warehouse, and how they are able to solve the pedophile crime guy at the same time. And it's dark, it's creepy, it's super well done. This is a great book, and it's coming out in hardcover, oversized hardcover, and AfterShock builds really good hardcovers in the spring, late spring or summer. And so I urge you, if you like good, creepy, well thought out, multi-layered stories, that you pick up A Walk Through Hell. This is one, I can't say this is one of Garth Ennis's finest because I love everything he does, but I think most recently, this is his most recent finest. I mean, it's like trying to pick your favorite child if you have more than one, like me. I can't pick my favorite Garth Ennis book, but I will tell you, I think this is a very strong effort by him, and I would definitely pick up A Walk Through Hell. Then we come upon a Cullen Bunn book. Cullen Bunn is on a roll. He has written a lot of really good, scary, disturbing, interesting, entertaining stories, and this one's no exception. It's Dark Ark. And I have the 3 trade paperbacks, but it's out in a hardcover. And I don't know if the hardcover has volume 3 or not. So you'll have to research that. Um, the premise is that when Noah got the word from God to build an ark to save all the creatures, this other guy who was a sorcerer got the word from his evil lord and master that he needed to build an ark to save all the occult creatures on the earth. Here you see a manticore. There's vampires and werewolves. Unicorns are actually accidentally on this ship. I think they feel like they shouldn't be on it. But here's the sorcerer dealing with who has told him to build this ark. And so it's kind of an unholy ark, filled with all kinds of magical creatures of yore. A sorcerer has his family on board, and he's got to deal with keeping all these unruly passengers, these creatures, from mutinying him as they are riding the floods that God has sent to wipe out the world. And there's, of course, murders that happen on the ship, and he has to investigate. There's an ornery vampire on the ship, and he has to deal with him. And it goes through 3 books, and it is excellent. I loved Dark Ark. I told you I loved all these. But it is such an interesting premise that there was an extra ark full of God's forgotten creatures that are under the spell of the presence of the evil one, and the sorcerer was tasked with saving all of them. And they eventually find land, but what they find is a bit of a surprise, and I won't ruin it for you. But they have humans on board that serve as food for the creatures, because the creatures need flesh. That's an interesting thing that shouldn't be taken just on face value. There's more than meets the eye with those prisoners. They play a big part in this book. So I highly recommend Dark Ark. This is book 2. Covers are cool. And there's other creatures that exist that aren't on the Dark Ark that this guy has to deal with. He's even visited by angels. I won't tell you about that because that'll spoil the story. But Colin Bunn and Juan Doe, the artist, that's a great name, really hit it out of the park with Dark Ark. Totally dug it. A lot. And I don't think I'm going to upgrade my trades. I will reread them, but I don't think I'm going to upgrade them. This is one of the most famous AfterShock books. It's by Donny Cates. Donny Cates is another writer that just keeps churning out hit after hit. This is Babyteeth. And I know this has come out with a hardcover, and I don't know if book 3 is in it. So you'll have to check. That's book 2. Book 3 is in it. And the premise is what happens if a young girl gives birth to a blood-sucking Antichrist. There are various factions that want this child for their own. They're not content to let the girl just live and raise this baby on her own. There's people after her. The child has supernatural powers even from being born. Before he's even born, while she's giving birth in the car, he causes earthquakes. Through it all, the child isn't portrayed as being some evil character. He's just a baby. And they go through 2 or 3 attempts to have the baby stolen. The girl has her older sister and her father that have stood by her as she got pregnant. And there's a question as to how she got pregnant. And they send these shadowy organizations, send their assassins to try and kill the people and capture the child. They go to a place that was set up specially for them that is seemingly a really nice escape where the child can grow up safely. ulterior motives are there too. So this is 3 really good books. Let me see. I can't remember now if this is the end. Yeah. Oh, it says to be continued. So it's going to be going on from 3. They even visit, if the child gets upset, it can open a portal to hell. So they eventually decide the baby and the sister disappear into a portal from hell that's been opened up. So the father and daughter decide they've got to go into through the portal themselves, that is created by another child and a woman that bore another child that's kind of an antichrist, and they have to venture into hell to try and find, I don't know, what's his name? Clark, who's named after Clark Kent. And this is an excellent adventure. Really good, really interesting, more than just your typical... It's not even a vampire story. The baby just has sharp teeth and needs blood, but he's the Antichrist, and he's supposed to bring forth the end of the world. And you've got these 3 normal people trying to deal with that, wondering, are they supposed to usher in the end of the world, or what are we supposed to do here? They just wanted to live their lives. Donny Cates, another home run. Babyteeth 1, 2, 3 in trade paperback or the oversized hardcover. Highly recommend that book. And then the last book just got started, and I am definitely going to be following up on it. I'm definitely going to keep reading it. But it's just got 1 volume right now, and I think you'll dig it. It's called Dark Red. Now this is a vampire story. It's about a vampire that likes the Midwest, considers the Midwest to be spurned by the left and right coast, and likes settling into the Midwest way of life, where he's just all he's trying to do is just mop the floor of like a quickie mart and just exist. And he's not bad. He's not a bad vampire. He's a good guy vampire, and it sets him up versus a bad group of vampires. One group of vampires turns out to be a bunch of Nazi white propagandist vampires. And this vampire got turned in the war, World War II, and so he hates Nazis. He was a U.S. soldier that killed Nazis in a French bombed out village. He gets turned into a vampire. So he has not stopped hating Nazis, and so he does not care for these Nazi vampires at all. There is a greater organization in Chicago of vampires that want to win him over. And there is a lady love interest in this. She has a form of cancer that produces too much blood, and he found out about that, and so he relieves her of her extra blood but won't turn her into a vampire, and is just best friends with her. He just takes her extra blood so he can survive, and so she can survive. So this is a great, exciting, interesting book by Tim Seeley, who I really like. I like Tim Seeley's stuff. He did Revival, and I feel like he did some Batman. Now it'll turn out he wrote some famous Batman story that I'm blanking on right now. But Tim Seeley does a great job in this book, Dark Red, and I will definitely be following this. This looks like it's going to be an ongoing, interesting story. So I highly recommend Dark Red. And that is the end of my video. That has to deal with AfterShock Comics. They're putting out a quality product. Now, those are the only books I've read. They've got a lot of books out, so you can try some of the other ones for yourself. These are the ones that I read and that I enjoyed, and I vetted for you, and I can wholeheartedly recommend them to you. You'll dig them. So please give me a like. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment. I always respond to comments. And peace and love. Peace and love. Go get yourself some AfterShock Comics.